This is a public meeting of the Indiana Arts Commission, Arts in the Parks and Historic Sites 2020 Advisory Review Panel, Organizations, number 1. I'm Kathy Anderson. I'm a commissioner from Indianapolis and Nashville. Today is October 28th, and we are meeting by conference call and streaming live from a webinar. We welcome applicants who may be listening in today and would like to remind you that you are muted for this review. There is no direct contact or conversation about the evaluation and disposition applications before, during, or after the panel meeting. At this time, we would like the panelists and staff to introduce themselves, stating their name, occupation, and where they are from in the state. I'm going to go down my list, and please jump in when I say your name. Brittany Davis.
Hello, Brittany Davis, Eagle Creek Park in Indianapolis.
Thank you. And what you work at Eagle Creek Park?
Correct. I'm the park manager of Eagle Creek Park.
Thank you. Travis Doto?
Yeah, I'm from Muncie, Indiana. I'm a claims specialist with the Social Security Administration. I'm also a Indiana Master Naturalist and do poetry and writing as well.
Welcome, Travis. Alicia?
Hi, I'm Alicia Fiesel. I work for the City of South Bend. I am their Historic Preservation Administrator.
Thank you, Alicia, and welcome. Sarah?
Hi, I'm Sarah Hatcher, and I'm the museum educator at the Mathers Museum of World Cultures at Indiana University Bloomington.
Thank you, and welcome. Nasreen?
Hi, I'm Nasreen. I'm the Director of Adult Faith Formation and Communications at All Souls Unitarian on Indianapolis's east side. I'm a visual artist and I do writing and poetry as well.
Welcome, Nasreen. Amanda Baxter?
Hello, I'm Amanda Baxter. I'm currently residing inside of Fiber Arts Bloomington Studio in Bloomington, Indiana.
Welcome, Amanda. And Sarah Slover.
Hi, I'm Sarah Slover, and I am an arts administrator, musician, and photographer from Bloomington, Indiana, and I work at the Jacob School of Music.
Hello, Sarah. Wonderful Anna.
Hi, I'm Anna Chargasser. I'm the Artist and Community Services Manager at the Indiana Arts Commission. And I just wanted to mention, if you're a guest of the meeting, if you wouldn't mind, in the chat box, just throw in your name and what county you're coming from. That would really help us. Thanks and welcome.
It looks like we have a few people listening in. Now we'll begin the review panel. This is how the process will work. I will announce the application we will review and ask the first reader to begin the discussion. The first reader will provide their assessment of the application based upon the evaluation criteria and their perspective. Panelists, please note that the applications do not need to be recapped since everyone has read it. Just provide your comments, please. After the first reader is finished, I will ask the second reader to present any new, additional, or opposing comments. We are not looking for consensus, just a full evaluation from the different perspectives panelists bring to the table. After the second reader is finished, I will open the discussion for final comments. Remember, in the interest of time, we are only looking for new, additional, or opposing viewpoints. If a panelist has a conflict of interest, the panelist will be placed on hold while the application is reviewed. However, there are no conflicts of interest on this panel. Finally, once the application has been reviewed by the full panel, we ask the panel to update their scores in the online system. It is common for scores to change as a result of this broader discussion. These scores will be saved automatically. Are there any questions? And I just have one thing. I noted that if you're on mute and you want to speak, you can press the space bar to speak and then let up. Is that correct?
That's correct. However, We don't have any provision for guests to speak in this public meeting, just if you're a part of the panel.
Right. Thank you. Okay, let's begin. We'll start with the application from number 1 from Actors Community Theater of Seymour. Our first reader is Alicia.
Hey, yeah, the project for Hardy Lake, I think that it's very good that the participants will be experiencing the park. In fact, they'll get to experience quite a few things that Hardy Lake has to offer. I wasn't sure that the site was very integrated into the project specifically, and I'd like to know if there were any other goals of the site that this project supports, which I think would help answer that question that I had about if the site is integrated into the project specifically. Also wondering if the site staff is supporting the project or is partnering with the project to make this happen. I didn't get a lot of feedback from the statement of support that showed me what their role would be. And so I would be curious about that. And then in the public benefit and participation portion of the grant application, I was curious to know why this audience was selected. It's pretty clear from the role that the artist and the organization plays, but I would just like to know a little bit more about the age group from 8 to 18, and if that's a hard number or if they would allow younger children in or even adults if they were interested. Also regarding the evaluation, is there a target number of participants for success? It sounded like this program had been offered before, and so I wondered if there was a number that we were trying to exceed, meeting the goal, and then also wondering how about the audience numbers? What number of audience members would you expect to have attend the event to be deemed a success? I was hoping to see a little more information in the logistics. We have a decent timeline that's showing here, but I'd like to see the project activities outlined a little bit more in conjunction with their location on the site. Would give me a better idea of what the various activities were and if they related or were educating on the specific site that they were being held at. And then also if the site staff is involved in any way, I would like to see that their contribution is included, probably in the in-kind area. It seems like they would have some planning involved and also site management during the event. And then for artistic quality, I just didn't feel that there was a lot of detail in that response, although I did have confidence in the artist experience and the personnel from the documentation that was provided and the fact that they had provided a workshop already this year. But I just would like to see those two questions, artist personnel and artist experience, expanded on a little bit to be more defined toward this project. And that's it.
Thank you, Alicia. Our second reader is Travis. Travis?
Yeah, a lot of the concerns I had was addressed just previously with the feasibility and with site participation as well. I would have also liked to have seen more information about how this project specifically connects to Hardy Lake. I think the public benefit and participation though was very well defined on here and demonstrated. In regards to feasibility though as well, I think that could definitely be more defined and concrete. And with the artistic quality, I think with this particular application, some videos of what's been done in the past would be really helpful as well. But other than that, that's really the only differing opinions I have.
Thank you, Travis. Any other comments, new, additional, or opposing from the panel?
Yes, this is Brittany Davis. I'd like to add, it would be helpful to know if there is a fee for participants and what the maximum number of participants are, and possibly even what plays would be featured in this program. Thank you.
Thank you, Brittany. Okay, so please finalize your scores and update your online comments. Does anyone need more time? All right, let's go on to the second grant. Number 2, Arts for Learning, the Indiana affiliate of Young Audiences. Our first reader is Brittany Davis. Brittany?
Thank you. So this grant is for Mound State Park, and in reading through the application, I think it's evident they had a lot of communication with the park staff and have worked to really relate each activity specifically to Mound State Park. So have incorporated natural history, cultural history, and I feel like they've worked with the park staff to find out what the goals are for the site. It seems like their goal is to attract and engage regular park users that are maybe coming to the park for fitness and not engaging at the interpretive center. So I think that has been covered very well. As far as the art projects themselves, it seems like they've cast a wide net of ideas between the variety of activities, the yoga, the effigy, the different activities. As far as things that maybe are unclear or could be improved upon, I would suggest making sure they do a lot of marketing for the Bluegrass Band event. The Bluegrass Band is about 33% of the total budget cost. So just to get their money's worth, I would really encourage them to come up with a great marketing plan for that portion of the grant. And let's see, as feasibility, the budget looked very clear, artistic. I think they covered everything, and overall I was very pleased with the research done for the application. Thank you.
Our second reader is Amanda Baxter. Amanda?
I'm pretty much in agreement with what Brittany had to say. I think the only other comment I wanted to add is I thought the event sounded quite wonderful and I would love to attend. I think I mentioned that it's, how did I say? So I live farther away from the Mound State Park, and I don't receive any emails from Arts for Learning, and I live 2 hours away. So if I wanted to know this is happening, if I knew this was happening, I might actually be more willing to make the trip to the Mound State Park. I'm still learning about the state parks. I don't know much about the state parks in these areas. So I would, how would you reach, how much of the general public do you want to reach? Can you reach a little farther perhaps? I think in my comments, I made a couple of suggestions, but otherwise I agree. I feel like the evaluation, or not the evaluation, the application very clearly engages the cultural sites, history, natural resources, and that's all I have to add.
Thank you, Amanda. Anyone else have other comments, new, additional, or opposing?
I would just like to say that It would be advantageous in the application if they identified whether or not Robin McBride Scott is an Indigenous person. Some tribal people may be offended if non-tribal people are conducting their art forms and portraying it as being traditional. So that's an area I would encourage the applicant to be cautious and forthright with.
All right, please finalize your scores and update your online comments.
Y'all are doing a great job. Just want you to know. If you had any nerves about this, thank you. This is going very well. It's a very helpful comments and you're being very efficient. So thank you.
Is everyone finished? All right, we'll go on to the third one, Arts Place Incorporated. Nasreen, please.
Yes, I think that the strongest part of the application is that the arts programming meshes really well with the history and spirit of the Limberlost, and pays homage to the, the bulk of work of Gene Stratton Porter. One thing that was really strong was that the audience engagement in hands-on participation is like the bulk of the project. So I really appreciated that about the application, is that the children who are the main audience are not just watching a performance or gleaning through observation, but actually hiking the park, drawing what they see, and then producing a project that they can then take home with them. Another strength in that area was that the audience is able to learn a new skill in terms of pulp making and creating the books and moth books. I particularly liked that the budget takes into account students with financial need, and that the registration fees are kept at a minimum, but that the budget still stays feasible for what they're trying to do. As far as marketing, I felt like this was one area that probably needed to be bulked up. I know that the applicants will then have to submit a larger marketing plan, but I think because the bulk of the project is so participant heavy, not having participants signed up ahead of time would really impact the success of the project. And the other thing in terms of evaluation, I thought that I would have appreciated some more information from the applicant about how they are going to evaluate the participants' experience of the program. Because they are working with children, I would have appreciated some information on how they're going to reach out to parents and families and guardians to get information on that. Project logistics was just pretty strong because they didn't try to overshoot what you're able to do with children. It was like hike and then draw. Yeah, I think that's the end of my comments.
Thank you, Nasreen. Our second reader is Sarah Slover. Sarah?
Hi, I don't have too much to add, but I did find the connection between nature art and advocacy to be very compelling, and I loved that they were dedicated to bringing in not just school students, but like homeschools. Sorry, they're all students, but homeschool as well as public school students, and creating that space for children to learn about science and art while experiencing nature. I thought that was a pretty special program.
Thank you, Sarah. Any new, additional, or opposing comments? Okay, please finalize your scores and update your online comments. Anyone need more time?
I just need a second to finalize my scores.
Sure.
I'm trying to do it on the on my phone,
Ah,
which is not working super well.
Nasreen, I'd be happy to leave your evaluations open for a little bit longer after the meeting, if that would be useful to you.
That would be really helpful. Thank you.
Yeah.
thanks, Anna. All right, can we proceed?
Yes.
All right, number 4, Big Car Collaborative. Our first reader is Sarah Hatcher. Sarah?
Hi, thanks. I really thought this application was incredibly well written, and it really allowed me to easily understand the project and how it meshed the mission of the Big Car Collaborative with Turkey Run State Park. I also really appreciated the fact that the project clearly identified both the significance of the site and its goals. In a similar vein, as a museum person, I really appreciate anytime someone brings up interpretive goals, and this application did that as well. By understanding the interpretive goals of the site, the applicant was really able to propose a project that fits nicely with it, and so that was a smart thing to do there. The portion of the application that asked who the intended audience was really thorough and focused on engaging existing audiences, more so than encouraging new audiences to come to the park. And I had mixed feelings about this. On the one hand, that really encourages deep engagement, but on the other hand, I feel like you're kind of leaving something on the table because you're not getting people to the park unless they're already there. And I think this project has the capacity to engage with people who might not just go for a hike. So I think there's room for both audience development and engagement that could be kind of ratcheted up a little bit. The evaluation tools were really nice, and the fact that they were multifaceted, I think will allow them to really gather some good data. I would like to know a little bit more about what they plan on doing with the evaluation once they have gathered the data. Because that part was less clear to me. And as far as the budget and marketing parts, I thought they were really clear and understandable, and I felt like they were completely in line with what the project hopes to accomplish. When we look down at the artistic quality and the ability of the organization to execute this project, the degree of care and thoroughness in this application gives me a really high degree of confidence that they will be able to do what they have said that they will do, and the artist quality looks more than enough to execute this project.
Was that it, Sarah?
That's it.
Okay, thank you. Second reader is Brittany.
Okay, thank you. As Sarah said, it does sound like an exciting project, and what a beautiful place to do a project like this. I did have some questions regarding the targeted audience, and my concern would be the age. So the activity requires either use of a cell phone for photography or ability to write the haiku. So I was curious how they could engage younger, so maybe preschooler or the whole family as a whole. I think it would be fun for the participants if they were able to keep their photos. So maybe print 2 copies of those, one for the big car display and one to actually give the participant. As far as survey, I think the evaluation process looks great. In a park setting, there may be some concerns about questioning, like asking them their average household income as they're on vacation or trying to get away from things. They may not like that question on the survey. And then I was curious about the feasibility of the project. So about 78% goes towards staffing and staff travel and everything. And I think that's okay. Was curious about staff's in-kind contributions as well, and think that that could be documented as well to show what they are providing already. So very good. Thank you.
Thank you, Brittany. Are there any new, additional, or opposing comments? All right, then please finalize your scores and update your online comments. Everyone finished? All right. Next request, Chautauqua in the Dunes, number 5. Our first reader is Amanda Baxter.
Okay, let's see. All right, I think starting off, it seems to me that this this applicant is clearly working in partnership with the park, but I found a bit vague what the event actually is and what the park's place in this project is. I don't really know what History Comes Alive is, and so it's hard for me to understand what this partnership exactly is going on. I don't know how it's being integrated into this program, just that it clearly is. Let's see. For public benefit and participation, let me see what I go down here. Yeah.
Right.
Sorry, my internet's a little bit wonky here. Got the spinning wheel. Okay. I guess I put the number of participants will be tracked, but I'm not quite sure how they're going to be tracked. How are you going to get the audience to take your questionnaire? I'd be curious to see. It can be kind of hard to get audience members to actually do that. For feasibility, I put, will the park partner with the organization for marketing? Will the park provide any in-kind support, such as promotional materials, site staff involvement? The park is collaborating with the applicant, but they're still hosting their own History Comes Alive weekend is what I'm reading. So again, I think I just said that. Maybe you could talk a little bit more about what History Comes Alive is and what the park will be doing around the project, so I can more clearly understand what their place is in this project. I asked briefly how you're going to find your other artists. I know that you have like an application process you're going to go through. I was maybe a little bit curious about the application process and how you'll find the rest of your artists. And then just a nitpicky thing with your Facebook page, because I think your Facebook page was part of your part of presenting your artistic quality, and none of the photos were actually labeled, so I didn't really know what I was looking at. Other than that, I think that's all I have to say for that.
Thank you, Amanda. Our second reader is Alicia Faisal.
Okay, I would just add that I thought there was a lot of information in the project description question on the grant. And I think that some of that information also answers some of the later questions that were a little more vaguely answered, in my opinion. For instance, the site goals, I didn't feel like were very defined, but maybe there's something that can be extrapolated from the project description if you were to go back there. And then that also rang true for me with the project logistics. I felt like I wanted to see a lot more information when it came to project logistics, because there is so much going on with this project. But it's not really detailed out so much in the logistics. But then going back to the earlier description of the project, maybe there's more there. So kind of looked at the description for more of the answers to the later questions. I also wanted to know what number of attendees is expected to deem this project a success, because it sounds like we're doing this project now, and so maybe we have some numbers, what happened this year, to gauge if we want more or less. More, probably. And then I was wanting an example of the questions that would be asked of the audience in that evaluation. I think that would be helpful to know what information we're wanting to know so that it can be improved upon in future years. I also thought with the marketing plan, I wanted to know if the site staff has offered any suggestions or feedback. And again, I feel like because they're doing this project this year, they have done it, that there should be some evaluation feedback that's coming in right now. And I want to know how the site felt about it and if they're eager to have this project there again. And if the site staff are donating any time toward planning or staffing, we should include that as an in-kind donation against the budget. That's all I had.
Great. Thank you, Alicia. Any other comments at this point? All right, please finalize your scores and update your online comments. Everyone finished? All right, going on to application number 6, Everyday Connections. Our first reader is Travis Dotto. Travis? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So with this application, I would have liked to see just a lot more detail. A lot of things were left pretty vague on here. So a lot more concrete details would have been definitely helpful. With the projects that they're offering to, I would have liked to see more about how it specifically connects to Clifty Falls. Also says that they'll work with the site staff to ensure the safety of the participants. So I would have liked to seen more about that, because it sounds like it might cause a lot of undue hardship on the site staff there to ensure that everyone participating is safe. So would like to see more on that. Let's see here. I think you do a good job, obviously, of identifying the audience for this, and that the participation, I would like to see too more about how many people you're planning on having participate in this. And you talk about an evaluation form, but what kind of specifics are going to be on that evaluation form as well would be helpful. Let's see. I would also just like to see more on the feasibility, because I know everyone has not been actually set up for this yet. So there's still some things that could fall through. Don't get all the intended people that you think are going to. So I'd like to see more information on the logistics of that, of what you're going to do if some artists or someone that you was getting to do these projects fall through. So not having everyone lined up for this definitely makes it to where the feasibility might be in question at some point. Also like to see more on the marketing plan, just to make sure that your intended audience is actually going to know that these projects are going to be available to them. And with the artistic quality, with not knowing all the artists and the people that are going to be actually involved with this, it's hard to know whether or not they'll have the ability to successfully complete the project. And that was really all that I have on this.
All right, thank you, Travis. Sarah, our second reader.
Thank you. I agree with a lot of what Travis said. I think he covered it pretty beautifully. I do think that it was really nice the way that the application identified the fact that individuals with disabilities are often at an economic disadvantage, and that this program allows them to have an opportunity that they might not otherwise. But overall, the application really would have benefited from a whole lot more in the way of details. I would have also encouraged the applicant to, in the budget section, not underestimate the value of their volunteers. They are only valuing volunteer hours at roughly $10 a piece, and I think the IRS is recommending double or more for that at the moment, and that would make their budget look a whole lot different. And backing up and looking at the project logistics, as Travis indicated, it would be really valuable to have a thoroughly developed timeline that's really clear and really specific. And otherwise, I think Travis got it all.
Thank you, Sarah. Are there any other comments? Thank you. Please finalize your scores and update your comments, your online comments. Does anyone need more time? All right. Our 7th application is the Fine Arts Society of Indianapolis doing business as Classical Music Indiana. Our first reader is Sarah Slover.
Hello. In this application, I really appreciated how the goals of the project were so intentionally built around the goals of the park itself. The proposal was really well constructed and provides clarity not only for the panelists, but for the team who would be implementing the work. So I think that they've got some work done in advance. I think the composer choice is really relevant and should draw a good response, especially from the target demographic that they listed as the young professionals. And I also appreciated the focus that they had in their marketing plan on person-to-person marketing, because I think that's something that often gets missed and is extremely valuable. So that's what I have.
Thank you, Sarah. Our second reader is also Sarah, but Sarah Hatcher.
I thought that this application was really strongly done. I don't have a whole lot to add to what Sarah has already said. I did think that the build a playlist activity was really interesting, and I would love to actually be able to participate in that. So thank you for making me feel excited about something. I hope that that's an activity I can witness in person someday. Overall, just really strong and well written, to the point where I didn't have to go back and reread things over and over again, which I appreciate.
Thank you, Sarah. Any other new, additional, or opposing comments?
I might just say one thing, and I think this comes from my very unique and personal perspective. And I imagine this didn't bother anybody else but me, but I'm not quite sure why the targeted audience is specifically young professionals. I hate to say it, but I don't know if I know exactly what that means. Like specifically music professionals, or is it like a sophisticated audience? I don't know. It just didn't quite make sense to me what that meant, but it seems limiting to me, but I think that might just be me as well. So I'll just leave that out there.
Thanks, Amanda. Any other comments? Okay.
Sure, this is,
Please,
oh, sorry. Sure, this is Brittany Davis. I just wanted to add, I appreciated the detailed timeline with all of the specifics, and I think it sounds like a well done, exciting event. Thanks.
All right, please finalize your scores and update your online comments.
Just want to check in. We're halfway through. Hooray, well done. Is there anyone who needs to take a 5-minute break? Please speak up. All right, back to you, Kathy.
All right, let's proceed. Number 8 is Fort Wayne Youtheatre. Our first reader is Alicia Faisal.
Okay, I feel like the shows that are planned here have the potential for promoting and understanding the site in general. But I was hoping that some of the specific goals for the
Kind of
site
frozen
would be,
up here.
am I on the right one?
I've frozen up. Can
Okay,
anyone hear
Kathy.
me?
Yes, we
Kathy's
can hear
frozen.
you. I think it might just be your internet reconnecting. We can hear you fine, Alicia.
Okay.
Sorry, Kathy.
Yeah, so I was hoping to see some of the site goals expanded on so that I would have an answer to the question if there's anything more specific about the site that will be taught through these shows. Although I do think in general, there's the potential for promoting the understanding of the site. And for the audience, I feel like they were very specific as to who the audience was and why. And the participation sounds like it's very inclusive and interactive as well. But I did question if there was a target number of audience or of attendees for success and what that number would look like. And then the logistics seemed reasonable for this project. And there also seemed to be a lot of details with the marketing. They're gonna touch a lot of different areas with their marketing, but I wondered if the site staff had any suggestions about where they would market. Some of that could be incorporated here as far as providing signage at the park entrance, but just if the site had any feedback. And also assuming that there would be site staff support for this project, it would make sense to estimate their donation as an in-kind expense. And that's all I had.
Thank you. Kathy is working on getting reconnected. So our second reader, Sarah Slover.
I don't have a whole lot to add to that. I did love the idea of performing, especially the works that they chose in nature. They have characters that are from the world of nature. And I think outdoor theater performances possess a certain kind of magic.
Okay. Thanks, Sarah. Any new, additional, or opposing comments for the rest of the panel?
And I think I just wanted to add that in the logistics section, there's I would maybe like a little bit more explanation on how the framework of your actual programming, so more about how you're going to set up your workshops, who's setting up in the lodge, who's constructing the set, or when will the set be delivered, what setting up for the workshops will even involve, and things like that. It could be just beefed up just a little more.
Great.
I'd like to just make a really minor observation that it would have been beneficial to have an outsider proofread the application. There were a few spots where I think maybe Microsoft Word may have been involved, and like ample turned into amble. So as a native English speaker, that was easy for me to catch and understand. But if a grant reviewer were not a native English speaker, that may have been a head scratcher.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, this is Kathy. I'm back. Where are we?
You are just in time. We are going to wrap up. Please finalize your scores for Fort Wayne Youtheatre. And then Kathy,
Okay.
when you're ready, go ahead and introduce us to number 9.
All right. The 9th application is Friends of McCormick Creek State Park, and our first reader is Brittany Davis. Brittany?
Hello. For this application, I think it's 2 long-standing events that have proven to be successful. Both events have been running over 10 years. I think it does a great job involving park staff and had a great letter of support from the property manager. I was wondering if they could include the attendance numbers from years past, just because they do have such great baseline data. In their evaluation process, they have a great measurable objective for quantitatively and qualitatively. I like how they're interacting with the artists and with the crowd and with the park staff. I would like to learn a little bit more what the $3,000 musician stipend, a little bit more about how it will be dispersed between the two events, and also maybe some additional information on number of bands that will be present at the events. I have attended a couple of these events in the past. I think it's a very successful project and worth their time. So that's all I've got.
Thank you, Brittany. Our second reader is Nasreen Khan. Nasreen? Do we have Nasreen?
Hello?
Hello, Nasreen?
Hello?
Nasreen, go ahead.
All right, guys. I'm breaking in and out. The connection's really bad right now.
I can hear you, Nasreen. Can you proceed?
I'm only able to hear snatches of your conversation right now.
I can hear you. Go ahead. Just speak. Just go ahead and speak. We can hear you.
As far as that application, I don't have that much to add, except that I would have appreciated more of a connection to the site itself, about how the artistic project would have played up the natural elements of the park.
Okay, thank you, Nasreen. Anna, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, I'm just checking in. So any other comments, new, additional, or opposing comments on Friends of McCormick Creek State Park application?
I would agree with Nasreen's comments on connecting more with the natural, the nature of the park. Under artistic quality, I would also like to see examples of the kind of vendors that you've been hosting, and like with images of your previous events, images of the musicians and vendors and artist demonstrations. The flyer left me kind of just imagining most of it. So I would love to see some examples.
Any other comments?
I'd like to just add that the application notes that a template is followed to ensure success from year to year. If they already have that template, it would have strengthened the application to include that as one of the attachments.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, please finalize your scores and update your online comments. Does anyone need more time? All right, let's go on to number 10, application number 10, Friends of Potato Creek State Park. Our first reader is Amanda Baxter. Amanda?
Okay, so there's, at the beginning of the application, I just found that there was a lot happening all at once. There's all these different topics: African American history, Native American history, and then there's activities with tombstones, and then there's lake recreation, and then there's bird migration. So there was a lot of just a lot of different topics, and so it it was kind of like this extra large art event, but I'm not really sure where it's directed exactly. The application had a lot of like how questions and what questions. So for example, how will you engage and encourage in audience participation with your projects? How will you engage all these different topics in this one event? And then it took me a little while to kind of pull it together. And this is actually kind of true with all the applications. So this is a comment kind of to everyone, but it was closer to the end before I realized there was like a whole 2019 concert series, and I didn't know about that until near the end, and there's really not a whole lot of reference to it. Is everything okay? Okay. Yeah, I didn't really know about that till the artistic quality part of the section, and I think it could have incorporated that a lot more into the full application to help me clearly understand what this event is going to be, especially if it's been successfully done in the past, or what's going to happen. It would be nice to, could you define perhaps what you mean by a series of concert series? Are they themed concerts? Will it be monthly? Will it be weekly? Will the music be tied into the history being presented in all these topics? So, is there anything else? I think there was some mention about bringing in, let me go back to, you want to reach a multi-generational underserved population, from youth of nearby urban communities to people with disabilities. Even though it's only 20 miles from South Bend and many have not come to the park, can you perhaps, just as a consideration, provide any sort of, are there any current bus routes to get people there? Because 20 miles is pretty far for some people. And so is there a way that you can provide some additional transportation? Let's see. For feasibility, I saw a lot of ideas, but little in the way of actual logistics. What's the timeline? What's your concert schedule? For marketing, when will things be distributed? I wanted to know more about how payments for musicians and artists break down. How do you know how much you're going to need in project supplies if you're not really sure what projects you're doing? There's not any mention of gate fees, which was something I never even considered until I was reading these applications, but gate fees is a thing. You have, if people are, if your musicians are coming, if you've got volunteers coming, how are you going to get them in the park? So if this is an event you've done before, it would be like some references to how you're coming up with your numbers. Because I bet you have an idea of where these numbers are coming from, but I don't know where they're coming from. So help me out. I think that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda. Our second reader is Brittany Davis. Brittany?
Yes, thank you. In reading the application, I think it's evident the grantee has spent quite a bit of time with the park naturalist to design the program. I'm glad that they're bringing in cultural history of the site and tying it into the art and nature. The pre-concert activities sound like a great tie-in and a good way to engage everyone of all ages. As far as number of concerts, I was a little confused as well how many concerts will be in this series. The transportation budget, it looks like they included a transportation stipend for adult centers that would bring buses out. So I think that's a good way to reach out to people that maybe otherwise couldn't come visit the park. I learned a lot about Potato Creek State Park from reading the application. So just curious again, number of concerts, are they early enough in the day for the target audience? And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Brittany. Are there any other comments? Alrighty, please finalize your scores and update your online comments. Does anyone need more time? All right. Moving on to application number 11, Kurt Vonnegut Museum and Library. Our first reader is Nasreen Khan. Nasreen?
I felt that the application did a good job utilizing the spaces of the park, and that there was a natural connection between Kurt Vonnegut and the Lieber cabin. The artistic quality section of the application was particularly strong because it did demonstrate the artist proficiency, and it, as an educator invested in pedagogy, I appreciated that there was a sample lesson plan to give the reviewers an understanding of how the session would be conducted. I see that the Kurt Vonnegut Museum has worked with this target audience of veterans quite a lot in the past. One thing that I would have liked to see more of is some documentation on how you're recruiting participants, because it is such a specific target audience. I would have liked to see how you're opening that net and not just, you know, recruiting participants from prior Kurt Vonnegut veterans events. The other thing I had a concern about was in the budget category. Nearly a third of your proposed budget will go towards lunch for the participants at the Turkey Run Inn. And while I'm sure it's wonderful and I've enjoyed being there myself, it just seemed a little bit off balance financially to spend 1/3 of your budget on lunch. And I wondered if there was a way to still highlight the inn and yet not spend $2,000 on lunch. I felt like that also, just the time consumed in doing that as a full day program, I felt detracted from the artistic quality. Yep, that's about all my comments.
Thank you, Nasreen. Our second reader is Travis Doto. Travis?
Yeah, so one of the things I did notice on this is that there's a typo with the project end date. It's listed as October 31st of 2019. So I don't think they intended to put that on there. The other thing I would have liked to see more information about was just how it was being planned with the site staff, just to minimize their workload. But other than that, it was a really strong connection between veterans and Kurt Vonnegut and Turkey Run, which I really like that. And I really don't have anything else to add other than that, though.
Thank you, Travis. Any other comments? New, additional, or opposing?
I would like to encourage the applicant to be explicit in how they will serve veterans who might have disabilities or other difficulties that could make participating more of an obstacle.
Anyone else? All right. Please finalize your scores and update your online comments. Anyone need more time? All right, let's go on to application number 12, the Levi Coffin House Association Incorporated. Our first reader is Sarah Slover. Sarah.
So again, for this one, I found great strength in the alignment between art and place for this. The music and stories and discussion by the performer will not only entertain the audience, but will educate about the historical context that surrounds the civil rights movement and Underground Railroad, as well as the site's involvement with those things, or with the Underground Railroad. And it's clear that the logistics have been thought through and considered, which I thought was really valuable, that they weren't putting, that the performer is pretty much self-contained, like he takes care of all the production stuff and brings the amplification. So anyway, I appreciated that as well.
Is that it, Sarah?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. Our second reader is Nasreen Khan. Nasreen?
Yes, I had some concerns about this project because it's the music of a particular cultural tradition and a music tradition that has a very painful history. And so while I did appreciate that the performer is completely sort of self-contained and that the budget was feasible, I'm a little concerned about not taking into account how songs that were sung on the Underground Railroad by slaves escaping oppression, how that is not taken into consideration by not using African American performers and leaders in that community to also benefit from the grant funding for this. And while like all education about this is valuable, I just would have liked to see the application take into account how that conversation can include the people whose songs and arts are being sort of appropriated here. And I would have liked a little bit more self-awareness about that and inclusion in sort of the plan of the artistic plan. The other thing that I was concerned about was that there wasn't much in terms of how the participants were going to be more than just an audience. I would have liked to see a little bit more like hands-on or educational portion that wasn't just a musical performance.
All right. Thank you, Nasreen. Any other comments? All right. Please finalize your scores and update your online comments. Anyone need more time? All right, application number 13, Main Street, Corydon, Indiana, Incorporated. Our first reader is Sarah Hatcher. Sarah? Sarah? Anna?
That muting thing gets me every time.
Okay, all right. Thanks, Sarah.
So I thought that the application made a lot of sense. The site and the project are obviously really closely aligned, but I didn't think that the application necessarily did a great job of clarifying and making explicit the ways that the site's goal and the project are aligned. It can be really, really hard as the author of a grant to make sure that everything you're thinking about winds up on the page. But I would caution the applicant to really go through each and every question in detail and make sure that they're answering all of them as clearly as humanly possible. In this case, the application asks the applicant to define the site goals that the project supports. And I didn't really find a lot of evidence to that directive had been followed. I also thought that the applicant did a really nice job of identifying the audiences and how they would be served. But looking at the engagement ladder, this application is much more of a participation than engagement. So that being said, it definitely did provide a nice opportunity for audiences to watch a performance. And maybe that's opening the door for deeper engagement in some future project or performance. As far as the logistics and the marketing plan, these sections could have benefited from the inclusion of a whole lot more details. The timeline for the logistics was pretty nicely laid out, but it would have been strengthened by telling me who is doing all of the things in the timeline and how those people will be identified. I also felt like the marketing plan was a little weak on matching the audience to the plan, specifically for that Saturday public performance. And it didn't really include details like where posters might be distributed. And I know that that comes later in the marketing plan, but for me, when you include those sorts of details in the initial application, it shows me that you've really thought about who your audience is and who you're serving with this project. The artistic quality was very easy on this one. Our performers obviously quite talented, and the two organizations have done big events before and have a proven track record in that regard, so I didn't have any concerns there. And with that, I will turn it over to my second reader.
Alicia.
Okay,
Alicia? Thank you.
I wondered if there would be a way to offer more hands-on experience. And I do feel that the artists and the organizations that are coming together here have the quality and the abilities. I'm confident about that. So I feel like if they could find a way to offer more hands-on experience with this, that it would be a stronger application, in my opinion. I also wanted to know how many participants would be anticipated for success. And then I was curious to know what similar past projects does the group have experience with that are similar to this? It looks like they've done a lot of things, but which one of those things could be aligned with what program they're planning for this grant? And with the marketing plan, I wondered if there were any suggestions or feedback from the site staff, and also if the site staff are involved in planning in any way, and day of logistics, if their value could be added to the budget for in-kind support. And that's it.
Thank you, Alicia. Are there any additional new or opposing comments?
I just wanted to add under feasibility, it looks like you're receiving money from sponsorships. I don't know how much you can ask about that here, but I was kind of curious to know where those sponsorships are coming from. But I don't know if that's, I actually don't know if that's an appropriate question. But if that's an actual number that you're definitely receiving in sponsorships, or that's expected sponsorships, or what those are exactly. And then if you have vendors, if there's going to be any funds coming from them, if you know what their expected contribution might be, that would be helpful. Thanks.
We can't take comments from anyone that's not a panelist at these. I'm sorry to say, Alicia, but that's what has worked out to be the best situation. I understand that there's frustration sometimes about not being able to get the answers, but that's what we have found works. Are there any new, additional, or opposing comments? Okay, please finalize your scores and update your online comments. Anyone need more time? right, let's move on to our final application, number 14, Monroe County Civic Center. Our first reader is Travis Dodo. Travis?
Yeah. So with this one, I think they did a very good job of tying in with how this is this project's significant to the state park. However, I would have liked to seen just more information about how it's being planned with the state park, just to minimize staff involvement and harm to the park. I would have also liked to have seen them narrow down their audience more. At this point, it's just visitors to the park. So I think it would be a lot more beneficial to have that narrowed down just for marketing as well, because I think that would make it hard if you're trying to market to anyone that's going to go to a state park. With participation as well, at the end, it says there's the availability of hula hoops and juggling supplies. I'm not quite sure how it ties into things. It just seems like there could be more done to provide some kind of hands-on engagement with the audience other than that. Also with the evaluation methods, it's the only thing really in place here is just a head count. I think it would be better to implement some kind of feedback from the audience besides just the head count. Let's see here. Also with the artistic quality, I think this one would have really benefited from having a video, and I think that would have helped me be able to determine that a little better as well. Other than that, that's really about all I have on this.
All right, thank you, Travis. Our second reader is Amanda Baxter. Amanda?
Those are pretty good comments. I might just add a few pointers too. And under public benefit and participation, I think you could probably include the park as part of the participatory experience. The audience is experiencing a performance at community theater, in a historical amphitheater, in a state park, and that's I would promote that as part of the participatory experience. But I don't really have too many more additional comments. I really liked how the applicant summarized the history that connects the park to the event. That helped me understand why it helped me understand the event pretty clearly. So that's all I have, really.
All right. Thank you, Amanda. Are there any other comments, new, additional, or opposing? All right. Please finalize your scores and update your comments. Are we done? Is everyone completed? Anyone else need more time? All right. This concludes the Arts in the Parks and Historic Sites 2020 Organizations #1 Advisory Panel at 2:55. And I just want to say a huge thank you to everyone for your thoughtful attention to this process and to your particular commitment to the process.
Mhm.